and this is Elizabeth, and welcome to You Should Meet My Friend. Today we are meeting Megs Crawford. She and I met a couple of years ago at a yoga retreat, and she was in the midst of a corporate job and momming to some young kids, but I think even then she'd mentioned that she was looking to make a change in her life. And what she does now is she's a professional organizing coach, and she's lead of the podcast How to Organize an ADHD Brain, which is just doing really fabulously. So I'm very excited for you for how well that's doing.
Well,
And
thank you.
the podcast focuses on issues of an ADHD diagnosis received as an adult and the challenges and ways you can turn the diagnosis into a superpower for yourself. So, welcome to our
Absolutely.
podcast. It's so great to chat with you.
Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
This is a writer kind of question. So, in the writing world, you're a planner or a pantser. And pantser means someone where you just jump in and it's a seat of your pants kind of thing. For example, I do not pre-outline what I'm writing. I'm a pantser when it comes to writing. When it came to making this transition from corporate life to being a professional organizer and an entrepreneur, was it planned out or did you just jump right into it?
No, I jumped right in. Yeah, I was totally a seat of my pantser. I think it's interesting because I had a lot of ideas in my head prior to me leaving the corporate world, but I didn't have it planned out by any means. I had been working with a career coach probably starting in the spring of 2023, and I was trying to discover what was my next step. Was I going to find a different role at a different corporate world career? I was getting my master's degree in project management
Mhm.
and just trying to find myself. And then one day I looked at my career coach and then I talked to my husband and I was like, what if I just left? Do people do that? Do people just leave their jobs and not know what's happening next? And my career coach was like, sure, people do that. And then my husband's, do it, just do it. And I was so excited. I gave a 3-week notice because I had to write mid-year reviews and I felt compelled and I felt like it was my obligation, but I wrote all the reviews and then I was like, okay, that's it. And then I planned a vacation for us to Hilton Head, which in retrospect maybe was not the greatest idea in the world, but from there on out, I knew I didn't want to go back into the corporate world. There was a lot more thought behind it, but as I thought of who I wanted to show up in my regular life as on a regular basis, not only as a mom, but as a woman entrepreneur, I just knew that there wasn't a place for me in the corporate world anymore. At the same time, looking back, if I knew what went into creating a business and being an entrepreneur then, I don't know that I would have done it, which is probably a good thing for me to just fly by the seat of my pants and learn as I go. And that's exactly what I've been doing. And I'm so grateful for all of the incredible women groups that I've joined to support me along this process, women that are on the same journey or might be a little bit ahead of me. It's just been a really incredible. It's been a really incredible life leaving the corporate world.
I bet. Did you always intend to do a podcast, or is that an outgrowth from the business that you started?
My career coach had introduced me to the Kathy Heller podcast. And then
Hmm.
I read her book, which was Don't Keep Your Day Job. She was starting a podcast course. And at the same time, I was really into the manifestation world. So I got certified to teach manifestation. And then I was starting a business. And I realized I had gotten in over my head pretty quickly. I couldn't do all of these things all at once. So while I was taking this course for podcasting, I actually didn't show up to any of the classes, but they were all recorded. So once I was ready, I have a podcast group I meet with on the regular. So I was able to, through them and their support, set a date for releasing my podcast and just do it. And again, fly by the seat of my pants. I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but originally I wanted to jump in and podcast about creating Pinterest perfect pantries, like the home edit style. I'm like, oh, yes, this is beautiful. I want everything to be perfect, like works of art in your home. But then as I started working with more and more clients and also embracing my own ADHD diagnosis, I realized that there was so much opportunity for me and my passion was in the ADHD space. So the podcast just happened because I was dipping my toe in it. And then I felt compelled to do it, but it wasn't going to be about ADHD at first.
Oh, wow. I know from listening to your podcast that sometimes it's just you talking and sometimes you interview some people. Even though Missy and I can talk for hours, I'm not sure if I could do a podcast where it was just me talking. So, do you like one or the other better?
Originally, I liked interviews better because I love asking questions. I'm just genuinely very curious, and I come from a coaching background, which is part of asking a ton of questions.
Hmm.
And part of it was me just learning a ton more about my own ADHD diagnosis from these incredible professionals that agreed to be on my podcast.
Hmm.
And I remember doing my first solo episode, and I was so nervous because, first of all, I'm not asking anyone else questions. I'm doing my own thing. Actually, my first solo episode, I had my best friend come on and interview me. So that way I could get more comfortable with it. And then she could ask some questions that she was genuinely interested in about my journey so that I could feel more comfortable. But I think it took me probably at least 10 episodes for me to feel confident enough in releasing a solo episode
Hmm.
that I felt like I knew what I was doing. And not only in my speech, but keeping it flowing. And also, I can go off on tangents quite a bit. And so making sure that I didn't like constantly go off on tangents. So people
Yeah.
were like, what are we listening to? So when I plan out my episode, I have a lot to say on each subject because I like to tell stories, but also give facts at the same time in what it means to have ADHD and how that might manifest as you're organizing your home and the stuff that we buy and how there's so much of what we do in our ADHD brains that manifests in our home as far as the organizing piece of it goes. So that part fascinates me. So as I see people experiencing this and doing like the physical in-person organizing and of course organizing via Zoom, it's fun to tell those stories and to really talk about it because I think that's where we truly relate to one another. I can't pick one or the other because I love them both. One of them gives me this aspect of learning that I'm always just so genuinely curious about what other people know. And then this other part allows me to share my own expertise based on what I have been doing. So,
And you sound so unrehearsed, and it's not like you're reading. It sounds very natural, which I very much admire.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it. Sometimes I'll create an outline to like, if I get off on a tangent, I'll come back and be like, oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But as long as I have something to prompt me to say, this is what I'm talking about, that helps me keep it in line. But then I just go off the top of my head. Otherwise, I can't stand reading something because then I feel too rehearsed and then I listen to it back and I'm like, ugh, nobody wants to listen. And I want those genuine conversations. I really do. I think this is beautiful what you're doing.
Oh, thanks. I was just
I'm
talking
sure
about,
you could.
oh,
Oh,
go ahead, Missy.
sorry, Elizabeth. See, and then we do things like this because we're totally unprepared. I was thinking about that when I'm thinking about this interview today and reading your background and listening. And I was like, man, maybe she should be interviewing us or critiquing us. Or is she going to grade us at the end of this?
Oh my
Maybe.
God, no.
So, what's some advice you can give us? We don't meet very many fellow podcasters,
I
and
know.
we always want to make it better.
So
And
it does feel
it
like every other person has a podcast these days.
Right? Yeah.
does.
Oh, advice. Let me ask you this. What would you say is your goal with the podcast?
Hmm.
Mm. I just a
Goal.
minute. I need to write that
Like,
down.
how
Yeah,
dare
yeah.
you,
No,
right?
so what I was going to say is podcasting is why I like writing because I like to be able to edit for clarity and to make sure that my intent is there either in the podcast or on the page because I feel like I say dumb things unintentionally all the time.
Oh my gosh, me too.
So,
Well,
so
that's what I'm for, Elizabeth. I'm here to
So,
make you
so
feel better.
we had two goals. See if I get this right, Missy. We had two goals. One was we wanted to highlight interesting and extraordinary stories about our everyday friends because so many podcasts and media focuses on famous people.
Yeah.
And it's not to say we have a particularly extraordinary group of friends, but within our friend group, we have people that have just been through extraordinary things and have some really interesting backgrounds. And then they have introduced us to more people. So we have interviewed some people we don't know personally, but they've been recommended by our friends. Because I think one of the keys of getting through life is you're going through something, and if someone says, "Oh, yeah, my friend Jane, you don't know her, but something similar happened to her, why don't you two talk?" And I just think that's such a valuable human experience that,
Yeah.
and really, if we always laugh about our dozens and dozens of audience members, really, it's,
Our moms.
yeah, exactly. Really, it's for us, but also our challenge was just to do something new and different. We just, how do you do a podcast? How do you line people up? How do you try and work a schedule when you live in different time zones, which we have to work so hard to get the time zones right
Yeah.
sometimes.
Me more so than her. I'm like, where do I live? What time is it?
I think if we have
Where's the link?
only two time zones, we're okay. They have once in a blue moon when we have three different time zones we're trying to coordinate. That takes us some effort.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of
My
work.
friend who was in Finland, and then my friend who RVs full time. So it was, oh, now I'm here. So what's the time? I was like, I don't understand time zone math. But anyway, uh, yes, what Elizabeth was saying was, I think one, our focus was on our extraordinary, ordinary friends.
Mm.
And especially the people who don't think that they're extraordinary. We think they're extraordinary, and just trying to challenge them to come on to our podcast and tell us about their life and celebrate them. I love celebrating the ordinary. It's been my focus this year, is just to celebrate the ordinary. Yeah, I just like everyday people who don't realize how great they are.
That's incredible. I also think that you don't need any of my advice at all because it sounds like you're doing exactly what you set out to
I
do,
don't know.
right? Like
I don't know.
That's
I also love
Yeah,
celebrating the ordinary because like ordinary people are extraordinary. They're just not
they
famous yet.
are.
And you're technically
Exactly.
making them famous by putting them out there in the
Right.
world and giving them a platform to speak on. And it's
Yeah.
also like this incredible network that you've created, right? Because by
Yeah.
interviewing people, you get introduced to new and different people. So, the woman I'm going to share with you is someone that I would really love for you to meet. Her name is Melissa Snow, and she's one of my favorite networking gurus. But I texted her the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, networking is like compounding interest for building
Yeah.
your worth and your world and who you speak to. And she's, that's what I've been trying to tell people. But it's just so cool that, like you just mentioned, your friend who RVs full time. I was like, oh, I want to know this person. I really want to talk to
Right.
them because
Yeah.
people keep telling me not to live in an RV full time. And I'm like, I don't know. I haven't heard enough negative things yet.
she would be, well, we'll
Right.
get her contact info later. She would be a great person.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would really like that. But yeah, I think if you're trying to grow your podcast, that's one effort that I think that my podcast grew specifically because I talk about organizing and ADHD. And so that's such a common thing that
Mhm.
people go to search for. So I think I'm lucky in that regard that people search for organizing and ADHD, and that happens to be my podcast name. And people are like, I
Yeah.
really like what you have to say, which is amazing. And I love to speak and I think that's really important, but I think that the download number doesn't mean a lot to me. When I hear that I've impacted someone's life in a way that's meaningful, that is what makes podcasting worth it for me.
Yeah.
But if there's any technical things that you're looking to, I love to edit and Descript. That's my very favorite. What software do you use to edit?
I just started using Descript, and I use that for 75% of the editing. And because I started out using Audacity,
Oh, okay.
then I would just put it back into Audacity to add the music and stuff because it just makes more sense to my brain to
I
use.
love it. Yeah, you figured out what works for you. That's
Yeah.
really cool. No, but I think you're doing amazing. Yeah. And I think it's
Well,
just sharing, right? Is, hey, you
yeah.
were on my podcast, share it. And asking
Exactly.
for the review. Hey, you were on my podcast. I share this. Can you leave us a review? Things like that. I'm trying to get better at that myself because sometimes I forget. So ask me and I absolutely will, right? It's just different things
Right.
like that. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a solid plan for how we promote our podcast. But I'm in a writing group. Usually, our first meeting in January, we talk about our goals and what we want to try and learn for the coming year. And three or four of us all at once said, we need to figure out if we're doing the right thing in how we talk about our projects online. And
Okay.
so our solution was we're hiring a friend's daughter. So we're hiring a 20 something because we figure she probably knows way more than we'll be able to figure out on our own.
I love that. That's awesome.
Mhm.
Very
Yeah.
cool. I think it's so cool with whatever you do in life is we're constantly learning. And not only can we learn from one another in what we're doing, but we also learn from just taking action and figuring out what's next. And
Mhm.
plus, there's so many social media platforms out there, and they're all pulling you in all of these different directions. Do I need to be active on all of them or none of them or one of them? It can be overwhelming.
I did want to ask you more about, I'm sure you've done a lot of research and you've figured out what helps. And I just want you to share with our listeners because what you do is very near and dear to my heart. I've probably run across you in the past because I have a son who, when he was about 10, was diagnosed with ADD. And it's still something at 25 that he deals with, and actually 26. Sorry. I'm the one with ADD, and I don't know how old my children are, but we have this conversation all the time. His brain just works differently than mine. And walking into his house, oh, I know you haven't been home, but he knows where everything is. It works for him. And he and I have had a lot of good conversations about this is what works for me. And I have to realize that his brain works differently than mine. And so, can you share a little bit more about your work with people who have ADD and organizing not just their home, but their life?
Yeah, totally. I think when I first started the podcast, people would make recommendations. They were like, "Can you just tell me how to organize my bathroom or how to organize my closet?" And I was like, "No,
Yeah,
I can't." And
yeah,
the reason is because just because you have ADHD doesn't mean that you're also not your own individual person with your own individual likes, dislikes, things that you
right.
prefer, this and that. And so when I start to work with someone, I ask a ton of questions to try to understand what's going to work for them. I did a couple organizing sessions when I first started my business in person where I organized for people instead of with them. And I thought I had the greatest ideas, right? And that was great. I still provided them with the solution. But then I remember asking other organizers, what do you do? Because I started to realize I'm like, I don't know that I like this very much. And other people were like, we just let our clients decide. Do they want to be there with us or do they want us to do it for them? And then I was like, what if I decided I'm going to decide that I'm only going to work with people and not for them? And so that's one of my criteria now if I do any in person organizing, which is very limited now that I'm working with one on one clients. But that has helped so that I can truly learn how someone operates. And I go in asking them a ton of questions about what's working, what's not working, and how they live their life so that then I can start to provide solutions for them in a way that's going to support them, but also ask them a ton about the solutions that they feel like are going to support them. Not only that, but understanding what they've tried before in the past so that we can build on that foundation because most of us aren't starting from scratch. We know so much about our own lives and what we want and what our desires are. But sometimes with ADHD, we have this all or nothing mindset where if we don't get it right at first, if we fail at it at first, then we're never going to try it again because we're supposed to be good at it right away, except
Hmm.
that we're not supposed to be good at it right away. We just want to be really good at it right away. And
Mm.
when we're not, we're just like, nope, never going back to that again. So that is what I try to approach is, hey, if you fail, freaking awesome. What did that failure teach you? How do you go about it in a different way now to truly understand what's going to work for your brain and not just trying to accommodate what everyone else is telling you to do. We see social media posts out there and they're like, having a decluttered home is beautiful. And yes, it is. But then that brings a ton of shame because you're like, I don't even know where to start. I don't know how to even begin to attack a decluttered home. So I don't even want to look at this stuff anymore. And so that's where I come in and talk about even if you were to throw away one piece of trash, that's going to make a difference. Even if you just set up a donation box in the corner of your house one day, that's going to make a big difference. We also talk a lot about manifestation. Oftentimes, my clients are so focused on this big picture and this really complicated solution to a possibly really not so complicated thing, and making it as easy as possible because sometimes organizing is cyclical. Okay, in order to finally sort through all of my mail, I need to have a really good filing system. But in order to get a really good filing system, I need to buy a filing folder, or I need to buy something on Amazon or something over here. But then in order to do that, I have to know how to do that. So I feel like I need to do all this research in order to do. So then you're like, I'm not even going to start. That is too complicated. Whereas in reality, what if you just opened one piece of mail and took action on it or threw it away because it didn't matter in your life and you realized that? And so instead of thinking in these big, grandiose plans, I like to help people break it down. So part of this is from my project management background, but part of it is just understanding that we struggle with executive function and breaking things down into the smallest tasks imaginable to get to those big things. And so, how do we break it down? And so, I help people understand that. I've got different templates that I work with, but really just talking it through and asking some of the questions that people have never asked themselves. And I think that's one of the biggest valuable things that we can do is just ask ourselves the hard questions.
And I love how you call the ADD, the ADHD brain. And my son and I have had this conversation many times, is that it really is a superpower. His girlfriend says, I love that he has already thought about three solutions to a problem. And I don't even know that there's a problem, but he is already thinking about that. He can multitask like nothing else. He can have several different tabs open in his brain, and he can be working on several different projects at the same time. So his brain really, it works different. It didn't always work how public education or school teachers wanted it to work
Yeah.
or how he needed it to work. But he found his own way without really any professional intervention. Not saying that what you're doing doesn't work, but his was just through trial and error and tears and frustrations. And he probably could have used you in about fourth grade, but he's figuring it out. And I think the beautiful thing for me as a mom is that people now see him in his professional life as he's got these superpowers. Like
Yeah.
he's the guy that can solve the problems. So that's my long about way of championing what you're doing for people who maybe just do it different than the rest
Yeah.
of us. So yeah.
Totally. And I was using the word superpower a lot in the beginning. And now I was watching this talk on ADHD. And they say to hesitate using the word superpower, but instead say it can be super powerful at times. Because, on one hand, where you can create and you have these incredible ideas and you know what's coming next, like you can predict any movie and the plot and how it's going to end. And you know that it's a really good movie when you can't predict the plot or it happens totally different than what you thought in the beginning. But on the other hand, it can get really cloudy. You can go down this doom spiral so quickly because of how fast your brain works. If you think of a thought, you can perpetuate and ruminate on that thought so fast that oftentimes people with ADHD struggle with depression so much more than others. And like addiction and things that will fuel the dopamine in our brain because we're constantly looking for that next dopamine inducing something that's going to ignite
Right.
us. I think it's so super powerful, and there's a lot of mental health concerns that can come along with it, which is why it's so incredible that we're having these real life conversations about it now so that the outside world can understand that too, and more accommodations in the workplace, like even just as far as noise canceling headphones. I'm pointing to my headphones, like these things are amazing. I press a button and I can hardly hear my children and it's beautiful because that overstimulation is so real. When I was working in the corporate world, people would come up to me sometimes and I would always smile. I was always a smiley person. And part of that was just, I felt like I always had to be on. But then I would be auditing calls or being coaching calls and things like that. And I would not have a smile on. But I remember people would come by and tell me to smile and things like that. And I was just, oh my God, this is awful. Don't tell me what to do. I am working. I think it's just there's awareness in it. But the more we talk, the more we ask questions about what people need, the more we find solutions on how to work with our brains instead of against them, which is so incredibly powerful in its own right.
My son also has ADHD, and what always surprises me is that you would think someone who's super creative and his own brain is all over the place sometimes would just take like a duck to water to a chaotic kind of situation, and it is the opposite. That gives him anxiety quicker than anything. He wants things to be like organized and figured out, and like a big, loud crowd just really makes him very anxious. His favorite thing to do for mental health is to go take a multi-day hike in the woods by himself.
That sounds amazing. Oh, I really like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
And,
But I
and
love that he knows that about himself. That's
and
so
as I w-
cool.
yeah, as he was working his way through high school, which he had some rough moments in high school as we were figuring this out. I went to back to school night and we were in one classroom and I recognized the parents of a couple kids and I saw the style of the teacher and my first thought was, "Oh no. This is not This is a end of the day chemistry class with some kids I think are super energetic. Man, this is not going to go well." And it did not go well at
Yeah.
all.
It's amazing how we
Whenever,
know our
wh-
kids so well.
Yeah.
yeah, whenever my son was in elementary school, I would just try to find, like you said, Elizabeth, he needed to have the teacher who was in control of the classroom. And I didn't care if she was strict. He can't learn in chaos. And so one time I did a request for a teacher, and everybody was like, oh my gosh, she's so mean. She's so strict. And I was like, good, because that's the environment he learns in best.
Mhm.
And he had a good year that year because she herself was organized. She identified a lot of things in him and she figured them out in unconventional ways, and it worked out beautifully. And to this day, he credits his fourth grade teacher with putting him on the path of success. Big shout out to people who can figure it out because his mom was, I don't know, in over her head and couldn't figure it out.
Oh, that's so cool though. Like even my
Yeah.
7-year-old has ADHD and people are so concerned, don't label her. But I'm like, no, it just helps me understand her. She's not on medication
Yeah.
or anything. We haven't gotten her diagnosed, but there's no doubt. I I work in it enough, but she tells me things like, Mommy, sometimes I just can't turn my brain off and I don't know
Yeah.
how to. Her being able to vocalize things like that allows me to see not only myself differently from when I was her age, but also to be able to support her as a parent a little bit differently now, knowing so much about that diagnosis now. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Do you find that you are able to do what you do if there's music? Because my son always has to have a podcast, a book on tape, or music going. It helps him, I don't know, quiet the
Yeah.
other part of his mind or something.
So I have a dopamine menu that I created for my community, and it's on my website.
Really?
So you can go and download
Okay.
it. And that's what we
Yeah.
call a side. So it's
Okay.
like you do mundane activities by pairing it with a dopamine activity, like listening to a podcast. I actually even have an Organizing an ADHD Brain Spotify playlist that I created. It's super girly and super pop girly. I have an oldies one too, which is so fun. And it reminds me of car rides as a kid. But it's things like that that keep you going. So I'm a fidgeter and I play with silly putty all the time. I did this in the corporate world too, even before I got diagnosed, but it helps me because my hands are doing something that I'm able to focus on the task at hand. This is how I record my solo episodes too, which is really cool. But yeah, it's really neat. I'm actually doing a challenge right now to help people get off their phones more because, especially with having our phones so close, that's always something that's going to call you back in. Like, I think most of us are addicted to our phones nowadays. And with that being an issue, I created this dopamine menu and I'm encouraging people to use it to do things like walk outside and soak in the sun for 10 minutes before you go and do something different. Because people with ADHD have a lot of trouble with transitions, going from one activity to the next. So if you're able to do these little fill up your cup in between the activities, it can help you with motivation. Even just cuddling with your pets, but sometimes we forget that we have pets to cuddle with when we go all the day long.
Mm-hmm.
So just that quick reminder, going to the menu and saying, oh, what is one of my hobbies I haven't done in a while? Let me look from the 20 different things I have listed here and pick
Yeah.
something to do. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, those are called sides. I would just pair it with another activity.
Very cool. That's a great
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Should we jump into our questions?
We should. I'll start off with the first one and then we can take turns, Elizabeth, if we
All right.
want.
We ask everybody these questions.
I love it.
And we change them each season. So that's one of my favorite parts. It's just coming up with the new questions for
Yeah.
the season.
That's
Um,
fun.
so Megs, what would be the title of the book about your life?
Okay, so I have two. One of them would be organizing an ADHD brain, talking about all of the things that I struggled with until I realized I had ADHD, and then telling the stories about all of these incredible people that I've worked with because oh my gosh, the people that I work with are amazing. It's so fun to see them come to life and start to believe in themselves in a different way. I feel like I have the best job in the world, but then also discovering myself. And then the other one I would call Letters from the Heart. And that's because my mom is deaf. And so one of her best ways of communicating has always been writing letters. And so I
Oh,
have every single one of the letters she's ever written me. I have it in a box in my closet. And I thought it would be really neat to pair those letters with a story about my life and what was going on during that time. And yeah, like how it coincided, how it didn't. And also the struggles of growing up with a mom who was deaf. I had to learn how to find my voice because we rarely talked. And part of it was just because she didn't know how to have conversations. She did a lot of faking it herself, where
Mm-hmm.
she would nod along and smile, or she read lips really well, but we never really had conversations that went much deeper than how was school? What are you doing this week?
right.
When do you need to be picked up? Things like that. And yeah, just a little bit about that journey.
Mm-hmm. Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I have an older sister. She's 14 years older than me, and then two older brothers who are 10 years older than me and then 6 years older than me. My dad was in the Navy, so we're all Navy brats. And that's a fascinating story in itself, like how he would be gone and she tried to integrate herself into the community with the other Navy wives, but it was hard because she couldn't hear and she was seen as different. And so
Sure.
there was a lot of growth in that area too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Must have been, I'm sure she's a fantastic person to
Yes.
move all around the world and always be changing your community with four kids that she
Oh,
had.
yeah, totally.
Amazing.
Yeah, she's fascinating.
Do you want to ask the next one or should I?
Sure. I'll ask it.
Okay.
What's an unpopular opinion you have that you stand by?
Oh gosh. I was thinking about this earlier.
It doesn't
I'm
have to be serious, by the way,
it doesn't. Okay.
because we don't want to stress you out about
Oh
answers.
yeah.
It can be something like, I hate ketchup. That has been an answer we've gotten
Oh.
before.
I actually
Yeah.
really don't like ketchup. So samesies. But also I think it- it's unpopular because people don't think that ADHD people can be organized, but I think we can. I think as soon as you learn how to work with your brain, we can absolutely be organized. It's just that the world has told us we can't. And so I am trying to change that one brain at a time, one listener at a time. That's my unpopular, to be popular opinion based on my
There you.
influence.
Just,
I like that one.
to me, it's always if you can figure out a system, then you're golden. You just have
Yeah.
to figure out a
Yeah.
system. But it may not be the system that everybody else in the whole wide world does.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
got to fit you and the way that you live your
Right.
life for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend that her son has had some challenges the last couple of years, and the last time I saw her, she was saying he's on the spectrum, and she said he thinks differently, and I said, why is he the one thinking differently? Maybe we're the ones that got it wrong, and
Right?
he has figured it out. Like he's figured it out for him at least, and we're the
Right.
ones still trying to struggle to understand him. He understands it, and just having conversations with her and just thinking, like reframing, oh, he thinks differently. I don't, he thinks unique to him, and just trying to change that mindset. So we're
Oh, I
right there with
love
you,
that.
Megs.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
I like that.
So just trying to also empower her and encourage her that they're going to figure it out and live in harmony. And it's been a struggle, but
Yeah, for sure.
no one tells us when we have kids, hey, one day your kid's brain is just going to go a little haywire, and no one's going to have any sound advice for you. At least when we discovered things about my son, no one had any advice. It was kind of, and
It's interesting. And you've got to learn to work with them instead of against them. And you'll find a rhythm, but
and
it does take time.
it's Elizabeth, you want to go?
Sure. If your house is on fire, but all the humans and pets are safe and accounted for, what is one thing you would grab to rescue?
Oh, my purple blanket. I think I've
You
had it
tell.
since college. And what's
Oh,
hilarious, and I'm not ashamed of this is who I am. I've always had a blankie that I've had. I think I even did a senior paper on why people carry blankies with them from childhood up until yeah, always had a blankie. I up until my mid 20s, I had this blankie that had the fit. That was it. Only the frame. It didn't have the middle part of it anymore. And I remember my landlord hired someone to clean our house and they came in and
oh,
they threw it away.
Oh
I know.
why
So
would they do
I
that?
don't
Ah,
know. I think that I was a mess. I was not very organized, and that's part of my journey, right? I come from having a lot of
right.
stuff, and I had told my landlord, I'm like, I don't need anyone to clean my room, and he thought otherwise. He paid for cleaners, and
Wow.
it disappeared. So this blankie, I love it. It's funny because my husband bought me a new one maybe last year for my birthday. He spent a lot of money on it. And I was like, first of all, we do not need to spend this much money on a blanket. And also, thank you, but I'm not switching. I really like what I have. It's so soft and it's purple is my favorite color. So I don't know. There's something about it that brings me a lot of joy and happiness beyond just the comfort of being warm and wrapped around it. And so, yeah, so that's what I would grab from my house. That blanket's not going anywhere.
yeah. Do you
Yeah.
travel with it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yep. I will take something out of my suitcase in order to fit it in. So,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Uh-huh.
I love the dedication in that. I can understand when they were cleaning out my grandparents' house. I inherited it always hung on the back of the couch. It was someone had made this blanket. It is scratchy as all get out, but I was like, I want that blanket. And
Yeah.
now as an adult, I think it's that fondness, those memories of I would go to my grandma's house and it'd be early in the morning when my mom would drop me off. She would be like, oh, lay down on the couch and go back to sleep. And she'd cover me with that blanket, but it doesn't
Oh.
hardly covers anything at all. So when you're only like 8, it's obviously it's a bigger blanket. But I have it. I don't use it, but I don't know. There is something about blankets.
Yeah.
So,
I like that.
yeah.
So our next question is, what organization do you support that you would like to share with our listeners?
Oh, yeah. So there's two that I have donated to in the last couple months. And one of them is Tessa, which is out of, I don't know if they're national, but I know they're local to Colorado Springs. And they support women getting out of difficult domestic abuse situations. So they support them finding jobs, finding new locations to live, helping with clothing, food, all kinds of different things. So that one is really cool. And then I also love Tri Lakes Cares is another local organization here to Colorado, and they support our local community in not only a food pantry, but also clothes and different donations and supporting people who just aren't making a lot of money. I just held a clothing swap in my area.
I was going to ask you about that. I heard that
Yeah.
on your episode and I want to try it. So tell us how.
Oh, yes, please do, because we have so many clothes. And then we feel like we need to be able to get rid of them in a way that's like ethical and supports our community. And sometimes we hesitate to bring it to Goodwill because we feel like they're not going to do as much with it regardless. having a clothing swap, one of my friends came up with the idea. And then actually, Crystal from the yoga retreat. Yeah. So her and I decided to host one at her yoga studio, and it was amazing. So people brought all of their clothes that they no longer wanted. We hung everything up. So people paid $10 to get in, and then they went and shopped everyone else's clothing. I walked away with a pair of Fry boots, which I've never had a pair of Fry boots, but they're so darn cute. I wear them all the time. And I was able to let go of so many of my clothes. And then all of the additional clothes, we were originally going to donate to Tessa, but then I found another location in Colorado Springs to donate to. And now I have rallied some of the local professional organizers to go and help her organize some stuff because there's a lot of stuff she has. So it's neat because taking all of these steps in the direction of supporting the community has led to so many other opportunities that have opened up. I'm excited I know I'm moving too, right? So people are like, what are you taught? You're helping your community, then you're just going to leave. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to not do it here anymore, but hopefully put it out in the universe so other people can get inspired too. And then I'll help my community back where we're going.
Love that idea of everyone just takes all the clothes that don't fit or they don't want anymore, and then you get to go shop. And I just remember as a kid loving when the bag of hand-me-downs got handed to my mom because it was like Christmas, seeing the new stuff, and it was always clothes that your mom might not buy for you, but it was in the bags. Yep.
I love that. And I think that can still be the case, but I also think we consume so much and like it's so easy to buy with Targets and Walmarts and Amazon so much that we all just have so much. And so I'd love to make donating to people and like swapping clothes so normal again. But oftentimes we look for the easy way out because we're all so busy.
Yeah.
And when it makes sense to just order something. But yeah, so I'm going to do another one before we move. And I'm going to partner with this other company called Trashy. And you can order a bag from them and you fill it with all of your clothes. You mail it back and they'll give you cash to use at their company if you want to buy something else. Or, yeah, it's really neat. It's pretty cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
Whenever I've put clothes on like the sale sites, I never seem to get any kind of money for it. So I'd rather just give it to someone who can enjoy it.
Okay,
Agreed.
but there's another place that you can do. I did a lot of research for an episode recently. There's a place called ThreadUp where you can order a bag and put your stuff in there and they'll sell it for you. And then if they don't sell it, they'll just donate. And then you can also bring your stuff to H&M. H&M has a clothing recycling program, and the company that comes and picks it up sorts it into 3 different categories, like things to be resold, things that can be repurposed into things like insulation for homes, and then things that just need to be recycled or turned into rags and stuff like that. So it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, very cool.
When I lived in the greater Seattle area, we had a nonprofit and they would come to your house and pick up your stuff. And let me tell you, my donations didn't ride around in my car and see like the state of Washington because I could never quite make it to the donations. But just making that date of saying, oh, they're coming on Thursday. I have to get my stuff ready. I have to set it out or whatever. Let me tell you, it helped me get rid of stuff that way. But
yeah, sometimes we need a deadline.
Yeah, we do. Someone just needs to break into my house and take all the stuff I don't.
If only.
If only. Yeah. You did recommend, see, I have to write all this down.
Yeah.
Melissa Snow.
Tell us more about her.
Yeah. So she has a podcast called the Powerful Women Rising podcast, and she teaches women how to network in a super non-salesy weirdo kind of way. And so she holds these really cool networking opportunities once a month. It's $5 to get in. And then she has different questions that you go around and ask people in small groups so that you can meet people. And then she also has a community where she has people join and you get so much more of the networking. I first met her through the Polka Dots, which I think is a national organization for networking. And yeah, she's phenomenal. She's really neat. I actually also adopted my cat through her because she's a foster mom for cats. And yeah, she is a lovely human being. And I really enjoy her. And I think you would too.
Is she located in Colorado?
Yeah, Colorado Springs.
Networking is one of those things I try to teach my kids. Obviously, people can teach it. I don't consider myself to be like a studious person or highly intelligent person. But my one skill set is I know people, which is like what this podcast is about. It's not about me. It's I know people. I know powerful people or smart people or talented people. And so I'm always trying to tell my kids, like, don't you know somebody? Or that, hey, you can reach back to your friend who lives in Maryland or that you knew when you lived in Belgium or whatever, and ask them if they know, because that's all I do. That's how I operate.
Yeah.
And I work in an industry where I meet a lot of people on a daily basis. And that's how I found my accountant. That's how I can walk into places and just go, hey, I don't know if you remember me. And yeah, so I love networking.
I
Elizabeth,
do
what were you going to say?
too.
I don't remember what I was going to say.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
But I am required to ask, as a fellow dog owner, the name of the beautiful dog in your background.
Oh, yeah, that's Barley. So Barley's right there. And then normally Hops is on the other side. My husband works in beer. That's his passion. So Hops and
Oh,
Barley. Yeah.
love it.
Yeah, but he's a good boy. We're not sure quite what he is. He's a mutt. Oh, Hops is right here. She's on the ground right next to him. Oh.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Yeah, she is. She's like a mix pit bull golden retriever, which hilariously, when we first got her, they were like, "Oh, we think she's a Chihuahua mix," and she's like a big dog. Definitely not a Chihuahua mix. She's a really good girl. You guys good puppies, yeah.
yeah. I think
Dog fosters are always like, oh, I think it's going to be about a 20-pound dog. It'll be
Yeah.
fine, even though their paws are like bigger than your hand.
Right.
I'm like, oh no, this puppy is only going to be about 40 pounds. It'll be great. It'll fit right in.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I was so excited
Eli-
for a small dog, and she's not,
yeah.
and we love her. So
Yeah. Elizabeth, I think we should interview our dogs one day for an episode.
I would listen. Absolutely.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I have one that's the devil reincarnated. I always joke that the devil calls her for ideas
Oh my.
because she's a lot, but she's actually a pretty great dog. And then I have a dog that's old and smelly and sleeps a lot. And
Our one dog,
I love dogs.
sleeps about 20
Yeah.
hours a day.
Oh my goodness.
He does.
Yeah.
Oh.
Until it's time to eat. Then he's your friend.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, fair
Yeah.
enough. Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Megs, please tell us your website and your podcast so that can be shared with our audience as well.
Yeah, totally. So check out Organizing an ADHD Brain is the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. My website is organizinganadhdbrain.com. And on there, you can see all kinds of other stuff about me. I'm making a giant leap out of social media. So that won't be something I'm very active on, but I don't send a lot of emails. So if you wanted to go check out the dopamine menu, download that. And then I send an update about the episode at least once a week.
Very cool. Thanks so much for your time. So when is the big move going to happen this summer?
Yeah, so we're aiming for June or July timeframe. We're nailing down some of the bigger things right now. We have big dreams of owning land, but we might have to take a step in purchasing a home that's much less than what we're paying right now. And I looked at my quartz countertops the other night and I'm like, I don't know that I'm ready to give this up. But at the same time, there's bigger things we're aiming for. Yeah, we're just trying to figure out like how to take baby steps in the right direction so that we can get toward a garden and a view of the rolling hills and some trees, privacy. We're right on top of our neighbors right now. But yeah, like I said earlier, I talk a lot about manifestation. And so like I have this picture in my head. And so every day I ask myself, what's one thing I could do today to get where I want to go? And that helps.
Well,
cool.
we wish you well. We wish you well.
Thank you.
And
No,
we
it's good to hear that.
Yeah. Share your journey with us. Make
I
that part of
will.
your journey too. We want to hear about it.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time today. And it was great to see you again.
It's
That's
so
great
good to see you
yeah.
too. We reach out anytime if you guys need any podcasting, anything. So
Will
Okay.
do.
we'll,
Okay.
we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Meg.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
So what did you think of Megs, the organizing an ADHD brain expert?
It's very fascinating. it's very helpful and useful in
Hmm.
my own life and with my kids. It does make you pause and think. I don't think anybody wants to live in disorganization or chaos.
Yeah.
That we tend to think, oh, those people who, and this is just coming from because she specializes in organizing people's homes, but also their lives and other things. But that I've heard people go, oh, she's such a lazy housekeeper or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize that it is a daily struggle for some people to stay organized and on task. And yeah, so I like what she had to say about things, especially coming from an ADD, ADHD person. What'd you think?
The reason why I have followed her, this is an overused term, the reason why I've followed her journey from a corporate employee to someone who is the entrepreneur and has a podcast and has an organizing business
Right.
is that at this yoga retreat, she was just a really super compelling person. It's going to sound super airy-fairy. She just exuded this really positive, joyful glow. And the yoga retreat had maybe like 20, 30 people. So you got to know everybody. And so even then, she just was a really interesting person to chat with. And she was very open about her life. And we did a lot of like really deep spiritual thinking at the yoga retreat. And she's exactly the same. Her voice is incredibly soothing and she just seems, and I know this isn't the case necessarily, but everything is approached with such joy and wonder and curiosity that I
Yeah.
really find inspiring.
I find people, she seems very intentional.
Hmm.
And I feel like sometimes I'm just like, oh, she's very poised and grounded. And like you said, you can tell that. And yeah, her voice, I'm like, could I put her voice on repeat and she could lull me to sleep because she
Hmm.
just has one of those voices. It's just very calming. And I was reading an article recently about, what kind of energy do you put out into the world? And she's putting positivity and light out into the world. And you can tell that by spending just a few minutes with her.
Hmm.
So, so are you an organized person? I feel like professionally, like with a lot of you're the planner of this duo. You're the one that thinks these things out. And I'm just along for the ride and I'm the pretty one. But do you feel organized? Because I feel like you're an organized person.
Do you know, I think at every point in a parent's life, you find yourself yelling, let's be honest, yelling at your child something, and your brain remembers your parent yelling the same exact thing at you. I think that I was a kid like my son and all over the place and had a hard time paying attention. And like my mom called me, "You're such a daydreamer."
I've had teachers call me that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I must have been saying to Michael, "How can you forget whether or not you turned it in or not?" or something like that. And then in my
Right.
brain, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, my poor child. He's my child, so he's forced to figure out how to deal with this." And so I think I am a very organized person because that is how I get some control over my thoughts and my activities. Like I'm very focused on
Yeah.
calendars and I'm very focused on I don't know. I think my focus just comes from a way, just like how Michael has a hard time and your son had a hard time being in a chaotic classroom. That's
Yeah.
I calm my own personal chaoses by being very focused on planning and
Yeah.
detail because so many times as a kid, what do you mean you lost your lunchbox again? I don't know where I put it. A million of
Yeah.
those conversations I had as a kid.
I wish I could go back in time and redo a lot of things because we've had those same arguments, those same fights with the boys, like, where's your lunchbox? Where's your jacket? Why didn't you turn it in? And then I think about my own life. I've missed paying bills because the due date came and went. I've lost my keys. I've lost my purse. And it's so hypocritical. I guess maybe we want better for our kids. want them to do better than we did. My house is not pristine. I admire people. You walk into their place and everything, they're minimalistic people. They don't have clutter. My mom always used to say she was a good Methodist woman and she had piles. Those Methodists, she claimed that was like a Methodist thing. And so I'm a note. I like to write notes and lists, and it has to be laying like by my computer. And I try to do, okay, put 3 things I want to get done on this list. If it's on the list, it's a challenge for me.
Mhm.
That's what works for me. Beyond organizing, that's about it. Chris is, he's a person of habit. So like his keys, his wallet, his hat, they all lay in the same place all the time.
I do that too.
So
I try and do that too.
yeah,
Is like always have a certain spot where I put my keys, or I might not
yeah,
have one specific spot, but I could probably tell you the 3 spots you could find my purse in my house at any one time.
right. Yeah. My biggest thing are my earbuds because I'll come in from a walk and I'll take them out of my ears and yeah,
Mhm.
so it's okay. Go to one of the places that I know they probably are.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't I don't know the solution to helping people. I wish someone would have. I did have a friend when the boys were younger. You've met her, Angie Drake. She's been on this podcast. And she was probably one that helped me the most, helped Trevette with his brain. And then anytime the boys had deficiencies or in education or gaps, she was always one that kind of came in, and she was well read, experienced, and she just had a lot of good solutions that worked. Not all of them worked, but I just remember for one of the boys, I forget what it was they kept leaving at school, like their lunchbox or their homework. Like it was like a system where they had to pick up their homework from the teacher. I don't know what it was, but I just remember she was like, get a luggage tag and write him a note and put it on, hook it on his handle of his backpack where he picks it up. And I was like, genius. I had a luggage tag, and that's what he did for probably the rest of his education career was he always had a luggage bag and or a luggage tag, and if he
Yep.
needed to remember something, he slipped a note in there.
Yeah, this memory popped up the other day, and because of course I started my professional life before we had things like cell phones, and
Right?
I used to write myself notes on my hand all the time.
Yes.
And
Yes.
people used to always say, "What's that on your hand?" And I'm like, "Oh, I need to make sure to do X, Y, or Z." Like the thing I definitely had to do for that day, I would write on my hand. I wasn't smart enough to
Yeah.
write it on the inside of my hand. It was always on the outside, outside of my,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's been replaced by a notes app and sticky notes and things like that are now part of modern life.
I don't do things that I should do because I would rather watch TV or I don't know, do something mindless. But now that I understand that some of that is, that's just my brain, like what she said about the transitions, I can really see
Mm-hmm.
in my life. Okay, now that I got that task done, I'm going to sit here for a little bit and before I move on to the next thing. So I can see that about myself.
I love the idea that she's put together a menu of here are things to help you when you're stuck.
Yeah, I agree.
Find us at facebook.com/YSMMF podcast and Instagram at YSMMF podcast for episode announcements. Thanks.